Shai, Brakti Yahweh, Brakti Shai, Brakti Yahweh, Brakti Yahweh, Bashim Yahushai, Bashim Chakadash, the blunts, the apostles, and the elders of Great Millstone True Well. Salutations to the hopeful elect out there, you Akim, to Zadakim, that do this thing in the utmost truth and sincerity. On the pre-Shaman, this week's topic is going to be entitled, These Heathens Hate You. Okay? The heathens, all right, are the 17 nations outside of the nation of Israel, right? And the you I'm talking about is the nation of Israel, you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. What inspired me to do this lesson? I was doing, I have a friend that he's trying to get his professional photography business or what have you going. And it was kind of a quid pro quo wherein he wants me to, you know, take pictures of me or whatever and put it on his thing. And I needed to update my professional photos, whatever. So I got my suit on, we picked the location I chose. I chose Scarsdale. You know, I had something in mind. Now, him and his woman, we're driving up there. He said, yo, I don't see any black people. So he said so-called black people. By the way, this guy is like, you know, he's a humble Jake. But I would say, not that his attire versus what I was wearing, it kind of gave the stigma that he was like a typical Jake that would probably do something crazy or whatever, I don't know, right? But they were giving this Jake some dirty looks, yo. Esau was giving it, they felt hella uncomfortable. So it's alive and well in 2025 that these, you know, these Edomites, they still have that notion about Jake. And it's a culmination of a lot of things. It's an amalgamation of a lot of things, you know. Scriptures speak about a perpetual hatred in the book of Ezekiel 35 and 5. You know, the so-called white man has a perpetual hatred for Jake. That's how come they go so hard on niggers. They go hard on it. They don't know why. It's in their spirit. Scripture says in the book of Genesis, the 3rd chapter, I'll put enmity in thy womb between thy seed, between the serpent seed and thy seed. And we know that women don't have seed. So it's going into that enmity that's always going to be between so-called Negroes and so-called white people. Right? Esau and Edom. Esau, Edom, and Jake. But yeah, they felt hella uncomfortable, man. In fact, I said, let's go in the store real quick. I like the background. I like the... So it was a high-end particular place. And I fixed the car. I'm walking over. I'm like, yo, why you ain't going? He was like, yo, we're not going in, man. Because they the way they looking at us, it was like, we want you to go in because you got the suit on to ask them instead of others. So, yeah, man, it's alive and well, man. I seen it myself, like how they was looking at them. Genesis, the 83rd chapter, first verse says, a song or psalm of Asaph. Keep not thou silence, O Yahweh. Hold not thy peace, and be not still, O Yahweh. For lo, thine enemies make a tumult. So you Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, you do have enemies, man. That's something you can't wrap your mind around because you've been indoctrinated with so-called Christianity. Okay? It says, and they that hate thee have lifted up the head. They hate you. You know, that's these nations. You know, they don't like you, man. All right, they might be secretive about it, but they don't like you. They don't like Jake. You know what I'm saying? And you know, they're not supposed to. You know what I'm saying? Like, I already did a lesson on racism. Some Jake got emotional about it, but typically people click up with their own race, man, and there's nothing wrong with that. Raza is race or seed, and Ish is in favor of. And people, by default, like when you move to a new area, you kind of want to find people that's like-minded as you, eat the same things you eat, into the same music you eat, listen to. Okay. It says, and they hate Salakia, and they that hate thee have lifted up the head. Lifting up the head means proud. You when you bow your head, it's a sign of humility. You lifting up your head, it's a sign of pride. And here it is. These nations was created to rule on, to be servitude unto us. Scriptures tell us the world was created for our sake, but they're proud against you, so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. Jake is in a low state overall. You do have certain Jakes that are well off and doing good. Actually, you got a lot of Jakes that's doing well. But you also have a lot of Jakes that's fucked up. And there's a certain stigma associated with our people now, especially what they put in the media. It's not just the media. A lot of it is also true. Jake be wilding the fuck out. But you got these 2/3 that's giving Jake a bad rep, if you will. It says they have taken crafty counsel against thy people. Right? They have think tanks. How they could destroy you. And this is what I'm saying. It's an amalgamation of a bunch of things, because Jake in the 50s, they wasn't doing what they doing now. They were having families, all right? You had the so-called strong black man, father figure that was there, hardworking. All that stuff has been thrown out the window. Now these niggas are violent, emotional, fatherless, criminals, all these sorts of things. All right, how is that done? Social engineering through these think tanks, these crafty counsels that they come up with. All right, how can we make these niggas dye their hair pink? Pants off their ass, commit violence, and that's some of the crafty counsels they have. How can we decrease their population? How can we make abortions popular? Plan B a thing, like. All these different, this is so many different ways of so-called the food, everything, the culture, everything, to destroy us. You see? The proof on that is all you gotta do is look at TikTok. TikTok in China is all about educating their kids and putting them in all types of science. Over here, it's just to make you a degenerate. So social engineering is a thing, man. All right? They mold the population by targeting the children. Which is, how the scriptures tell you you're supposed to raise your child, start from a youth, mold them up the right way. From a youth, and here in America, in the West, they mold them to be degenerates. So it says, they have taken crafty counsel against thy people and consulted against thy hidden ones. They have said, come and let us cut them off from being a nation. Right. And, that's why we go out there with the 12 tribes on. The southern and northern kingdom, letting them know, look, man, y'all brothers, man. You see, because one of the ways the so-called white man has cut us off from a nation is, one, beat the Israelite out of us during slavery, and putting these proverbs and bywords on us, these names that's not our true nationality, and also make us hate each other, man. All right, the gang violence, I hate. I remember when I was in high school, I was being programmed, and I was like, for some reason, I couldn't stand Mexicans. Well, you might hear the Puerto Ricans say, I can't stand Dominicans. Dominicans, man, I can't stand these Puerto Ricans. It's like, where's that coming from? Woke up to this truth, I'm like, why the fuck was I thinking that? Like, what the fuck? So-called Mexicans, that's my brother, And I think one time I had posted that shit on Facebook. Yo, my high school teacher, she was fucking mad. She was a good woman too, man. Just so-called Mexicans, like, why you posting that shit, Now, you got a lot of our people still with that, still hypnotized, man. So-called Spanish, I can't stand them niggas. So-called Spanish, I can't stand. I'm sorry, so-called Jakes, I can't stand them Hispanics. You know what I'm saying? Esau, man. That's Esau. It says the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. But here's the thing with the truth. Apostle Raimla was making a good point. The truth is like a Bowie, right? You bring it under the water, you bring it down deep underwater, but eventually it has to come back up. So that's the truth. They try to bury it, but eventually it's going to surface back up. And our true nationality is coming right to the surface. There's a lot of stuff going on right now exposing the so-called Jew over there in the land of Israel. But it's only a matter of time before people are going to start saying these are not the real people of the Bible, man. You already got Candace Owens saying that they're Ashkenazis and stuff like that. It's only a matter of time, man. All right, it's not if. It's only a matter of it's when. It's only a matter of time before what we're saying now is going to be mainstream, man. Okay, they can't suppress it forever. Everything's going to come to light. That's in the book of Luke 12:2. 5. For they have consulted together with one consent. They have the United Nations, different, If you look at the United Nations building, it's a monolith. Monolith is one stone. They're saying, look, they're one hill, they're one government, they're unified. All right? Against us. Jake ain't in there. When these nations come together to discuss world affairs, Jake ain't in there. And if you have like a Jake country, they'll try to get an Edomite to run the shit. You know what I'm saying? Or a puppet. Brazil is a very powerful nation. But they're gonna get like a puppet leader up in there. You see? That may be a crypto Jew or something like that to run the nation. They did it with Saudi Arabia. The House of Saud, the Saudi royal family of crypto Jews. They're not real Ishmaelites, man. It says, they have said, verse 5, for they have consulted together with one consent, they are confederate against thee. The tabernacles of Edom, starts off first with the so-called white man, Esau, Edom, and the Ishmaelites, okay? Ishmael, right over there in the Middle East. Right now in the Middle East, you got, we call them Arabs. Arabs means mixture. You have a mixture of Ishmaelites, Elamites over there, man. Okay? Because, people are saying free Palestine and all that, but free the Palestinian people. The word Palestine goes back to the word Philistines, man. Because the Philistines initially inhabited the land. And then we took it from them, We took the land of Canaan. I'm sorry, the Canaanites inhabited the land of Israel. We took it from them. But Palestine goes back to Philistines. The Philistines are Hamites, man. Okay? So this is a bunch of confusion. That's why the Lord said he's going to rip off that veil, man. Okay, the covering cast amongst all people, because so-called white man has slapped names on people that's not associated with them in the Bible and just caused a bunch of confusion. But the point is this: neither of those people in that land are the true owners of the land in terms of who the Most High promised the land. The Most High promised the land to his people, Israelites, right? The Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. So the hell with the both of them, But that shit that them so-called Jews are doing to them so-called Palestinians, anybody with a brain would be like, damn, that's some grimy shit. So there's more light being shed over there. All this is going to escalate to World War III, by the way. It says the tabernacles of tabernacles of Edom and Ishmaelites, of Moab, so-called Chinese, and the Hagarenes, the Hamites. That's another huge confusion, man. We're not Africans. You know what I'm saying? Even certain Africans, they'll tell you that they know that you Jakes aren't Africans. They call you Kata, right? Cotton picking niggas, man. You got a different spirit. Even though you have the same similar melanin, doesn't mean you're the same, man. Okay, the scriptures tell you that the Ethiopians have a likeness to the children of Israel, but they're not. It's just like Moab and Ammon, the so-called Chinese and Japanese. They look alike, but they're not the same nation. 7. Gabal and Ammon, so-called Japanese, and Amalek, the so-called Jew. Okay, the Philistines were the inhabitants of Tyre, right? Again, Hamites, man. Okay, Ashur also is joined with them. They have hope in the children of Lot, Selah. So they come together, man. All right, they come together, unified against you. All right. Now, let's say you come across a person. They say, I don't got nothing. You come across somebody of another nation, and they say, look, I don't got Nothing against so-called black people. I don't know nothing against so-called. It either could be a lie, it could be a true, but it doesn't matter because we're talking about nations, okay? Because you have Jakes that will say that, like, oh, I met this person and he was cool. One, he could be an Israelite foreigner, first off. Secondly, it doesn't matter if he was cool with you, man. I had a boss, he was a so-called Jew years ago. Dude was cool as hell. I couldn't say anything wrong. Does that mean that he's gonna not be enslaved? Hell no. You know? I work with Edomites at my job, different jobs. That it was cool. It was cool. You know? How do I then go on the scriptures and say, you know what? You know, Esau's going into slavery except the cool ones. You don't say that shit, man. The Most High judges the nations, man. Well, when I say cool, I mean like they ain't give you no problems. I don't want brothers coming at me shit. Well, I don't say cool either. I'm just saying, you know, but that shit might happen. You know, you might come across one of these heathens. Everything going copacetic on the job. Cool. That's all right. Whatever. You know. Does that mean that, oh, you know what? They're gonna have some sort of special place in the kingdom where they're not gonna get fucked? Nah, hell no, man. Most High judges a nation. See? Psalm 64:1. It says to the chief musician, a psalm of David, hear my voice, O Yahweh. In my prayer, preserve my life from the fear of the enemy. Again, see, we have enemies, man, right? We have enemies, that's what it is. And by the way, speaking of which, because I talked about dealing with these heathens on the job, when you on a job, you on a job, man. All right? Don't go in there side-eyeing people and oh, fuck this heathen and shit. Nah, man, just, you're in Clark Kent mode, man. You know, be professional. Do what you gotta do. Be the best worker you can. You know, excel at what you gotta do. Get your money, get in and get out. You know what I'm saying? Time and a place for everything, you know? It says, to the chief musician, Psalm of David, hear my voice, O Yahweh, in my prayer, preserve my life from fear of the enemy. It says, hide me from the secret counsel of the wicked. Right, so who's the wicked? We just read about it in Psalms 8:30 chapter. It's also the so-called white man, the elite bankers of this world, so-called Jews, and these other nations, man, that conspire against the nation of Israel. You know, a lot of these things that you're seeing right now that's befalling the nation of Israel is a conspiracy, is a plot, was a think tank, all right, put together by these nations to destroy us as a whole. You see? It says, hide me from the secret counsel of the wicked, from the insurrection of the workers of iniquity, sin upon sin. It says, who whet their tongues like a sword, right? The word whet there is W-H-E-T, which means to sharpen. And yeah, no, that's what they do. You know, they sharpen their tongue against you. In the hopes to destroy you. You see? And that's going into their lives, you know? And the stigma that they put out against you Jakes. You know? Like I said, going back at the start of the show, them so-called white people in that area, they were giving them Jakes all types of dirty looks and shit, man. Especially the guy that was taking the pictures. They're giving them all type of dirty looks. Just looking like, I'm like, damn. It says, and that made people feel uncomfortable and shit. You know, and they doing it from a defense mechanism standpoint too, some of them, because they they just going based off what they see on the TV and shit. And also, some of them just truly hate you. Majority of them just truly hate you, Jakes, man. It says that they may shoot in secret at the perfect. Sorry, Salak, read verse 3. Let me read that again. It says, who whet their tongues like a sword and bend their bows to shoot their arrows, even bitter words, right? Lies, conspiracies, plots, anything to overthrow our people, all right? False nationality titles they putting on us. Racial stigma. You got this fucking clown Myron Gaines running around right now talking a lot of shit about Jake. Fucking black monkeys and all that shit. Had the Edomites saying niggers on this. So they start, mind you, them so-called white people, they don't fuck with you either. You know, but that's I'm peeping now. You got your Nick Fuentes coming out. People are gonna get more and more open. All right, with this whole, with their racism, okay? You got the border situation. You got so-called black fatigue. You're gonna see more and more people start vocalizing their frustration with other races, and it's all gonna eventually lead to a race war, man. That, I'm gonna give all praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashim Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashim Rachak the belongs to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone True Well. Citations to the hopeful elect out there. You Akim to Zadakim. Who is singing the utmost truth and sincerity. Shalom. Let me just make sure I finish off verse 4. I don't know if I did, but it says verse 4, that they may shoot in secret at the perfect. Suddenly do they shoot at him and fear not. So they don't give a fuck right now, but you know, Zephaniah 3 and 8, man. Also the scriptures speak about right now we're fishers. Soon the Lord will make us hunters, man. Jake will get his retribution. We will be on top. You know? And this man will go down. Shalom.